probably never thought of yourself as the villain. Not in your family, not at work, not in your everyday life. You consider yourself a good person. You try to do the right thing. You don't want to hurt others. You follow the rules. And yet, that very belief might be where danger quietly begins. Because history isn't only shaped by villains in masks or cruel dictators. It's also written by ordinary people. Quiet, polite, careful to stay out of trouble. People who don't ask uncomfortable questions, who keep their heads down and tell themselves, "This isn't my problem." Until one day, they realize they are part of something terrible. This isn't just a story from the past. It's about us. You, me, all of us. In 1961, Adolf Eichmann stood trial for his role in the Holocaust. He was not a monster with wild eyes or twisted cruelty. He was painfully ordinary, a man who followed orders, did his job, and believed he was just doing what was expected. Watching the trial unfold was Hannah Arendt, a political thinker who saw something shocking. She gave this idea a name that changed how we understand evil forever. The banality of evil. What does that mean? Evil doesn't always roar or sneer. Sometimes it quietly ticks like a clock, punches in like a worker, files paperwork, and smiles politely without raising suspicion. It doesn't scream. It yawns. And it doesn't need cruelty to spread harm. It only needs silence, obedience, and passivity. In this video, we're going to uncover a terrifying truth. You don't have to be cruel or evil to help destroy what's good. Sometimes, just doing nothing is enough. We'll explore the hidden forces that push good people into doing horrible things without even realizing it. We'll reveal the invisible traps: fear, conformity, the desire to belong, that keep people silent when they should speak up. But this isn't about blaming you. It's about waking you up. Because if you don't understand how this happens, you might never see it happening around you. The idea that evil can be ordinary, even banal, is hard to accept. We want to believe that terrible acts are done only by monsters or villains, but history tells us otherwise. When Hannah Arendt first introduced the banality of evil, she described Eichmann not as a sadistic monster, but as a man who simply didn't think deeply about the consequences of his actions. He followed orders, played his part in a vast system, and never stopped to question whether what he was doing was right or wrong. This is the dangerous power of banality. It hides in the everyday, in the small decisions, the silent agreements, the moments we choose comfort over courage. Think about it. How often do people avoid speaking up to fit in? How often do we follow rules without asking why? How often do we let fear of rejection, punishment, or loss keep us from acting? These are the invisible forces that quietly pull good people toward harmful actions. Not because they want to cause pain, but because they want to survive, belong, or simply avoid trouble. It's like standing on a moving sidewalk that slowly takes you somewhere you don't want to go, but you don't realize it until you've gone too far. This isn't just about history books or trials far away in time and place. It's about recognizing the patterns that still exist today, in workplaces, communities, even families. The same psychological traps that made Eichmann part of a terrible machine can catch any of us if we aren't careful. Understanding this is the first step, because once you see how evil can be ordinary, you begin to spot the warning signs. You start to question the orders you follow, the silence you keep, the small compromises you make. And that questioning, that awareness, is where real change begins. It's a call to wake up, to refuse passivity, and to choose courage over comfort. Only then can we prevent the quiet, ordinary moments from becoming part of something horrifying. To truly grasp how good people end up doing horrible things, we need to look inside the human mind. It's not about evil spirits or twisted personalities. It's about something far more subtle and terrifyingly common. One of the strongest forces at play is obedience. From childhood, we're taught to respect authority: parents, teachers, bosses, leaders. Following rules and obeying orders feels safe. It feels right. But what happens when those orders clash with our own sense of right and wrong? Stanley Milgram's famous experiments in the 1960s showed just how far ordinary people will go simply because someone in authority tells them to. Participants, average people like you and me, were willing to deliver what they thought were painful electric shocks to others just because they were told to do so. It wasn't cruelty. They were obeying. Another powerful factor is conformity. Humans are social creatures who crave belonging. When everyone else accepts something, it becomes easier to go along with it rather than stand out. Imagine the pressure of silence in a room where injustice is happening. The fear of being the odd one out. The risk of isolation. These weigh heavily on us all. Add to this the concept of diffusion of responsibility. When many people share responsibility, individuals often feel less personally accountable. I'm just one person, they tell themselves. My actions won't make a difference. These psychological traps, obedience, conformity, diffusion of responsibility, create an invisible web that entangles even the kindest hearts. And yet, there's hope. Awareness of these forces gives us power. When you recognize the urge to obey without question, the pressure to conform, or the temptation to stay silent, you can choose a different path. You can pause. You can reflect. You can say no. That small moment of courage can stop a chain reaction before it spirals out of control. Because understanding why good people do horrible things isn't about blaming ourselves. It's about learning how to break the cycle. And breaking this cycle starts with you, right here, right now. Understanding the psychology behind why good people do horrible things is one thing. But seeing how this plays out in real life, that's when the truth hits home. History and everyday life are filled with stories of ordinary people who, caught in the right or wrong circumstances, crossed a line they never thought they would. Take Adolf Eichmann, for example, the man whose trial inspired the term, the banality of evil. He wasn't a monster lurking in the shadows. He was a bureaucrat, a man who organized the logistics of one of history's greatest atrocities with a kind of chilling efficiency. Eichmann showed up to work every day, clocked in, did his paperwork, and smiled politely. He wasn't driven by hatred or madness. He was driven by obedience and a blind belief in following orders. But it's not just distant history. Look closer to more recent events, like the Stanford prison experiment, where college students assigned to guard roles began abusing their prisoners in just days. These weren't evil people. They were average young adults, caught in a system that encouraged cruelty under the guise of authority. Even in everyday workplaces or communities, people find themselves swept up in unethical behavior simply because it's the norm. When no one speaks up, bad behavior becomes accepted, and silence turns into complicity. These stories show us a powerful truth. Evil doesn't always roar. It can whisper through everyday actions, carried out by people just like us. But these examples also carry a warning. They remind us how easy it is to lose ourselves when we stop asking questions, when we stop challenging orders, ignoring uncomfortable truths, or convincing ourselves it's not our problem. The good news? Stories of courage and resistance exist alongside the dark ones. People who stood up, refused to obey harmful orders, and faced consequences to protect others. Their bravery shows us that while the forces of evil can be banal, the power to resist is anything but ordinary. By reflecting on these real-life examples, we begin to see how crucial it is to stay vigilant, because the line between good and evil can blur faster than we think. Understanding these stories isn't about fear. It's about preparation, to recognize when our own actions matter, to decide who we want to be when the moment calls. After seeing how ordinary people can slip into roles that lead to terrible actions, it's impossible not to confront a difficult question. What happens inside a person's mind when they realize they've crossed that line? The emotional and moral conflict is real, and it's painful. When good people find themselves involved in wrongdoing, whether by action or inaction, they often wrestle with heavy feelings of guilt, shame, and denial. At first, many try to distance themselves from responsibility, telling themselves, "I was just following orders," or "I didn't realize what was happening." These justifications are natural defense mechanisms. They protect us from unbearable guilt. But deep down, the conflict gnaws away. For some, this internal struggle leads to overwhelming shame and self-loathing. They replay moments in their minds, wishing they had spoken up, acted differently, or walked away. Others may suppress these feelings entirely, burying the guilt beneath layers of rationalization or silence. This emotional battle is part of what Hannah Arendt described when she talked about the banality of evil. It's not about monstrous evil, but about quiet, ordinary people who face the terrifying weight of their choices, or lack thereof. This conflict can also reveal something deeply human, the capacity for reflection and change. It's through wrestling with responsibility and guilt that many find the courage to grow, to apologize, and to make amends. But this process is painful and often lonely. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our actions. And it asks us to answer the hardest question of all: what kind of person do I want to be? This struggle isn't just historical or abstract, it's deeply personal. It reminds us that recognizing our own potential for both good and harm is the first step toward preventing future tragedies. Because true accountability isn't about perfection. It's about awareness and choice. Facing this moral conflict head-on means refusing to hide behind excuses, and instead embracing the responsibility that comes with being human. In doing so, we break the cycle of silence and complicity and open the door to real change. Wrestling with responsibility and guilt is not the end. It's the beginning of something far more powerful, the chance to break the cycle. Awareness is the first step. When we recognize how easily passivity and silence can lead to harm, we gain the power to choose differently. It's about seeing the warning signs in everyday life, the moments when it feels easier to look away, to stay quiet, or to obey without question. This awareness cracks open the door for courage to step inside. Courage isn't always loud or heroic in the traditional sense. Sometimes it's the quiet voice inside that refuses to accept wrongdoing, even when it's uncomfortable or risky. It's the small acts of standing up, speaking out, or questioning orders that can ripple outward into meaningful change. History is filled with examples of people who broke the cycle, not by grand gestures, but through everyday courage. From whistleblowers exposing injustice, to neighbors protecting the vulnerable, to ordinary citizens demanding accountability, these moments show us that the banality of evil can be challenged. But breaking the cycle requires vigilance. It demands that we stay alert to the subtle ways evil can disguise itself as normalcy, through bureaucracy, indifference, or blind obedience. And it asks us to cultivate empathy and moral imagination, to put ourselves in others' shoes, and ask what we would want if we were on the receiving end. This mindset transforms the abstract idea of evil into something personal and urgent. It shifts the question from, could I be complicit, to, what am I going to do about it? Because ultimately, the banality of evil thrives in the absence of action. But when individuals choose awareness and courage, they ignite a force that can stop the quiet acceptance of harm before it spreads. This is not just a lesson from history. It's a call to action for each of us today. By embracing our responsibility and refusing to be passive, we become part of a collective force that safeguards humanity's better angels. And that is the most hopeful truth beneath the darkest idea. The banality of evil can be overcome, one courageous choice at a time. Choosing courage and awareness leads us to a profound realization. Doing good is not always simple or straightforward. The world is filled with complexity, difficult decisions, and gray areas where right and wrong can seem blurred. But that complexity is no excuse for inaction or indifference. Every day, we face moments, big or small, where we decide whether to stay silent or speak up, to follow the crowd or question the path laid before us. These moments define who we are and what kind of world we help create. The banality of evil warns us that ordinary people can become part of something terrible when they fail to choose consciously. But it also reminds us that ordinary people hold the power to choose good just as fiercely. This power isn't about being perfect or fearless. It's about commitment. Commitment to looking closely at our actions, recognizing the impact we have on others, and making choices that protect dignity, respect, and justice. It's about remembering that each of us carries responsibility, not only for our own behavior, but for the culture we shape around us. So, what does this mean for you? It means cultivating awareness in your daily life. It means questioning systems and behaviors that promote harm, even if they seem normal or just the way things are. It means practicing empathy, listening deeply, and standing with those who are vulnerable or marginalized. And it means knowing that even small acts of kindness, courage, and truth matter deeply. When you choose good, you disrupt the quiet machinery that allows evil to thrive. You become a guardian of humanity's better side, not because you are flawless, but because you refuse to be passive. This is the legacy we can build together. A world where good people recognize their power and use it, where awareness sparks courage, and where the banality of evil finds no home. So start now. Look around. Ask yourself, where can I stand up? Where can I speak out? Because the choice to be good, even in a complex world, is the most powerful act of all. And that choice begins with you.